And welcome back to Forbes Sports Money. Leigh Steinberg is a legendary sports agent who's helped shape the current sports business landscape. For his clients, he blurred the lines between athlete and celebrity, and he became something of a star himself after serving as an inspiration for the character Jerry Maguire. In 1999, Steinberg represented 86 NFL players, and after building what was arguably the greatest sports agency in history, Steinberg and his partners sold their firm for $120 million. A best-selling author, movie consultant, and the man known for showing his clients the money, Steinberg's fame and power made him seem invincible. But the apex of a great career also marked the beginning of a precipitous downfall. Steinberg was arrested several times for drinking and driving and began to alienate his family, friends, and coworkers. There were several bad business deals, lawsuits, and eventually, Steinberg had to give up his license to represent NFL players, his bread and butter. Well, earlier this year, to everyone's surprise, Steinberg declared Chapter 7 bankruptcy. But the incredible story of Leigh Steinberg is far from over. Sober since 2010, Steinberg has been rebuilding himself, his reputation, and his business. Michael Ozanian traveled to Newport Beach, California to sit down with the man who is currently writing the next chapter of an incredible story in our Sports Money Profile.
I have 11 years of sobriety from drugs and alcohol, and I know for me it took a while, I'm still doing it actually, to get people's trust back. And you've had similar problems. Has that made it difficult to raise money and get the business going on this go-around?
The offers we've had have come from stories about my battle with alcohol and recovery efforts. So back in March of 2010, I simply crashed and believed that I couldn't go further in life without dealing with the fact that I had an addiction to alcohol. That was 2.5 years ago. I'm a couple of years behind you. And that led to bankruptcy and other problems. It's interesting. Of course it takes time to reestablish credibility. That's why I waited several years to go back out into the field. And when I had 2.5 years of sobriety, when I had cleared up all my different problems.
What point did you feel like, you know what, I've bottomed?
I think I was progressively drinking more after 2000 once I sold my business. But I came back to soft landings. In other words, we still had respect, fame, revenue, and all the rest of it. I went through a bad spell where we lost 2 homes to mold, lost a fair amount of money in the internet crash. My father died in 2004. And probably the capper was that in 2006 I got divorced and felt despondent. I found out you could do a very strange thing when I moved into the first apartment I'd really ever had. You could consume alcohol while it was light outside. And that really was the beginning of a slippery slope for me. I was living at my mother's house. I had alienated most of the people close to me. I'd put them through a lot of pain. And I had a moment of clarity, an epiphany as it were, that somehow lying in my mom's house on a bed, chugging vodka nonstop, was not what my mission in life was supposed to be.
Were there a lot of your former clients that after you became sober and started to make a move towards starting up your new business that reached out to you?
They reached out, thankfully, during the whole period. I've had clients that stayed with me as long as Warren Moon, which was 23 years. We basically grew up together, and the Steve Youngs and Troy Aikmans that were 12 years, 14 years, and these relationships were very close. And I've been gratified by the fact that the athletes responded.
How would that impact, for example, the type of athletes that would, take on, that you would take on to be clients?
I've always looked for role models. Part of our practice is that we asked each athlete to go back to the high school, collegiate, and professional community and try and trigger imitative behavior. So at the high school, it's meant like 120 high school scholarship funds, a way of saying this community helped shape me and I'm going to stay rooted to it. At the colleges, well, most alums relate to their colleges through the filter of their football or basketball team. And so by setting up scholarship funds, as Kerry Collins did at Penn State, or Edgerrin James at the University of Miami, or Troy Aikman and Eric Karros at UCLA, or Steve Young at BYU, they can build into that community. If a player starts his career by showing heart and the interest in integrating himself into the part of the community, then he's got the potential to be a role model. It's branding at a certain level.
What's it been like rebuilding your life and business, and how's it been going?
It was very challenging at the beginning because there I was in a material sense, basically with nothing. So I focused on sobriety, and that was difficult. It was difficult working through bankruptcy. It was difficult surrounding myself again with a wonderful cast of talented people. But all I focused on was staying sober, confronting every problem, and we're past virtually all of it. So it's blue skies ahead and exciting.
As Steinberg reestablishes himself, he's also keeping an eye on the current and future sports market, which we will discuss as soon as we return.
Do you think we're going to have a professional football team in Los Angeles?
We will absolutely have a team.
And welcome back to Forbes Sports Money. Super agent Leigh Steinberg is currently working on his comeback story, and despite all the obstacles he has faced and is still currently facing, Steinberg continues to be inundated with offers for athletes to represent business ventures, as well as book and movie deals. There's still the general sense that Steinberg's mind is operating years ahead of everyone else's, and he still has the ability to show you the money. Mike Lozanian picked Steinberg's brain on the future of sports, Los Angeles, and the art of the deal in part 2 of our Sports Money Profile.
You've been proven right about the San Francisco Giants. You led the movement to keep them in San Francisco for moving. They're now one of the most successful teams, both on the field and financially. You also had a movement to keep the Rams in Los Angeles from moving to St. Louis. You were vindicated there as well. Has anybody ever come said to you, you know what? You were right on both of those, and we should have listened to you?
What people said in Los Angeles when the Rams left was, we'll get a team back. We're the second largest market. The NFL needs us. And I said, it will cost 10 to 20 times as much to build a stadium. It will be years till we get a team back. So the answer to your question is that no one likes a "I told you so."
Where do you see the sports industry today and then going forward 5 years in terms of revenue? Looking at, I know your business is going to be involved in, baseball, basketball, football, each of those sports. Are they near peaking?
As long as it's possible for new networks or existing networks to improve the value, bottom line, of their franchises, and as long as they want to use sports as a loss leader to reinforce their brand, this expansion of rights fees will continue. Because when CBS lost the NFL, it dropped to being the last network. When it got it back, it jumped to being the first network. Fox was not even known. NBC, just by buying Sunday Night Football and its pregame show, and occasionally Thursday Night Football, has had a dynamic effect on the network. It works. Sports delivers. Sports delivers to the advertisers who advertise on it. 180 million people last week watched some part of an NFL game.
Do you think we're going to have a professional football team in Los Angeles soon?
We will absolutely have a team. To get a team, you need a venue. To get a venue, you need to have one site that's agreed upon. You need to have civic leadership that will ease the process. You need to have supportive press, none of which we've had in Los Angeles. So the attitude's been, we got a great lifestyle. Tell us why you want to be in Los Angeles. And the NFL looks at that like, oh my God, we have people moving heaven and earth to possibly get franchises. So I believe that the AEG project to put a downtown stadium is the right move at the right time and will be successful. The NFL franchise that moves into Los Angeles will be among the 3 highest valued franchises anywhere. We've got about 17 million people within an hour and a half driving time. We have massive TV markets. We have an entertainment business where the most expensive seats will go first. And we've got the ability to do a regional sports network. It will be a bonanza, as evidenced by what Guggenheim paid for the Dodgers.
Leigh, explain the art of a deal to me and what goes down when you're negotiating with an athlete in terms of coming up with the finances and everything else.
Well, the first key is research. It's to research the economics of the sport itself. It's to research where a player fits in that. It's to research the background of the owner, the background of the negotiator, because to create a win-win scenario, it's necessary to find a result that's going to be satisfactory for both parties. Otherwise, you have confrontation, and you have strong-willed owners and general managers of team, you have strong-willed players, and you have short playing lives. So what happens is that when that breakdown occurs, when people think things can't get worse, yes, they can. They really can. So you have to avoid ego and avoid that sort of confrontation. That causes war, it causes divorce, it breaks everything down. So it's trying to motivate the other party. The question is, whose reality is going to prevail? If arbitration isn't an issue, then who decides what the first player in the draft gets? Who decides what this veteran is worth? Well, it can be the free market by free agency, but if not, my job is to put together a compelling case that shows why my player is special and why these dollars are merited. And I need to use every technique that we have to put together a compelling enough argument to motivate the owner. The only person who can pay the player is the owner or general manager. So being public and blasting them can have the absolute opposite effect. And then to be creative in ways that work with salary caps and work with financial structures so that both parties come out winners. And then to be really careful not to walk around and brag about achievements, because the only thing I can tell you for sure is if you're going to deal with an owner or a general manager in any sport, you will deal with them again and again and again, and it won't be the last deal you ever do. So agents that feel the need to crow and tell the world that they just brutalized a team and they got over on a team are really being short-sighted.